Ready, set,
Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerd Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Rich Dotson, here, my fellow nerds, Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
Garrett Price.
How's it going?
And producing, as always, Jared Wackerly.
What up, what up?
You're going to hear a lot of Jared Wackerly over the next couple months because we're going to be breaking down these rookies, and there's not a better scout out there from a dynasty aspect than Jared Wackerly. And it's been proven on Twitter. So if you got any questions, just go argue with Twitter. So we're going to bring Jared in here. I'm very excited to kick off our 2022 rookie breakdowns. We've been doing this for 8 years straight. We've had a lot of success, and we look to continue that here with the 2022 class. And we're going to start off with the rookie running backs to go here. Now, remember how we do it since we launched the Nerd Herd. We're going to do, 5-6 players per show. We're going to do running backs first. It's going to be a total of 4 shows. Now, if you're not a Nerd Herd member, you're going to miss out on half of these prospect breakdowns. Now, for the price of a cup of coffee, not only you get the bonus podcast, we're going to hear the breakdowns of all these rookies, but you get so much more. You get all the Dynasty Nerds tools. You get the Dynasty Nerds film room, which is where we break down this tape, right? Like if you're like, hey guys, where are you watching all this awesome all 22 tape? It's on dynastynerds.com in the film room. Get it in there. You can watch an entire player's game in 5 minutes. We have all 22 library. It's fantastic. And that's where we get all our tape from. So get dynastynerds.com, check that out, and make sure you get all our rookie content because we have a lot coming to you. And we're going to talk about these players, their pros, their cons, how we think they'll be as dynasty players. Because remember, the most important thing here about these prospects is not about what they're going to do in the NFL. It's about what they're going to do for your dynasty team. How do they translate to fantasy football points? Because that's all that matters. This is a massive step for us to make sure we're going to win some dynasty fantasy football championships. Because without getting fantasy football points, guess what? You're not going to win any championships. And these guys are going to do it. There's a couple running backs we're going to talk about in this process that I absolutely love. I got 2 in Tier 1 in Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker. We'll hear everybody else's takes on these guys as well. And then, a couple other good guys here that can offer some good upside for your dynasty teams as well. Now, some of you guys are probably saying, Rich, I can't believe you haven't mentioned already, but the Browns totally dissed your boy Baker Mayfield. And he's no longer on the Cleveland Browns. And you don't even sound that emotional about it. Listen.
Did you just call him Faker Mayfield?
That guy's past tense, buddy. He's out of here.
All right.
No, I'll always love Baker.
Me too.
I got a lot to say about it. Deshaun Watson, Matt Ryan, Leonard Fournette, but we don't have enough time here because these are the rookie shows. So this week, you guys are going to get a bonus podcast. Garrett and I are going to jump on one probably tomorrow, record one about these extra free agents that they didn't cover last week. Maybe Garrett have a question about some guys that did sign, my opinion, but we're going to do an extra show for you this week. But we have too much information to talk about right now with these rookie running backs before we can get into all that, because I have a lot to say. What Deshaun Watson's going to do, Amari Cooper so much. I love you, Baker. I always will, but I'm a Browns fan first. So Deshaun Watson time. Now, before we get into our rookie breakdowns, we got to tell you about our friends at Prize Picks right now. Remember, if you go to Prize Picks, use that promo code NERDS, you're going to get a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. And you're like, hey, what's Prize Picks? It's the best legal way to make player props. They have tons of them. Whether you like basketball, golf, baseball, MMA, curling, whatever you want to do, they're going to have some player props on there for you at Prize Picks. And right now, if you're like, hey, I only mess around with football, that's my jam, that's what you nerds talk about, that's what I get into, guess what? Me too. That's my jam as well. Right now, you can get on Prize Picks and make a futures prop bet. That's right. Hey, is Deshaun Watson going to play 10 games? Over, under? What do you think? Get on there, make a prop bet. And what we're doing right now for all our Nerd Herd listeners is we're hooking you up. And we've hooked a lot of you up already. If you go on there right now, all you got to do is deposit $10. That's it. Just a $10 bill. What president's on the $10 bill? I have no idea. I only got the one with Abraham Lincoln on it. That's the only one I got. So if you get on there, you put $10, make a future bet. We're going to hook you up. All you got to do is DM direct message to Dynasty Nerds Twitter. If you don't have Twitter, you can email Jared at dynastynerds.com, JARED at dynastynerds.com. And
spelled it right. Good job.
Thank you so much. And we're going to hook you up with the most comfortable, awesome t-shirt in the world, and it's the Dynasty Nerds t-shirt. And I'm telling you, this has been, we have customer submittals, over 1,000 of those, saying that this is the most comfortable shirt you'll ever wear in your entire life. And all you got to do is make a future prop bet on Prize Picks. Go on there, find one, make it, and we're going to send you a shirt. So check them out, prizepicks.com. They got everything you need for prop bets. It's the #1 prop bet site in the world. You've seen it all over Twitter. Don't just look at it. Get involved. Prize Picks, promo code NERDS. We're going to hook you up with a nerd shirt. You're going to love it. Now.
Hold on. Before you move on, Alexander Hamilton is on the $10 bill. Go ahead.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah. I don't know that guy. He wasn't even a president. He was like a Secretary of State, right?
Treasury? I think that's why.
Talking too much smack to Aaron Burr, probably, is what I'm thinking.
His scouting report?
Yeah, not good. Guy wore a wig, I think. White wig. Too much syphilis. So let's talk about these guys here at running back. And, of course, there's no better way to kick off the show like we normally do with who we think is the best player at that position. Now, remember, when we talk about these players, we do not do them in order that we rank them. And honestly, we don't even rank these guys. We just break them down as prospects. After the NFL draft, then we will talk about these guys in order how we have them ranked. So to kick off this show, we're going to talk about running back Breece Hall out of Iowa State. 5'11", 217 pounds. He'll be right around. He's 20 years old now, but he'll be right around 21 when the season starts. So he's super young. And this is a guy over the last couple of years has been extremely productive. We saw him at the combine. Ran a 4.39 40-inch vertical, 126-inch broad jump. Yeah, Garrett, you had your hand up over there?
No, that was just the first. This is a guy. I'm just keeping it.
Oh, you're counting. Oh, yeah. I forgot. We did that way too much last year. So now, Breece Hall.
Can we get a counter, like a ding?
We should. Rambo, get on that counter for every. This is a guy or here's a guy.
Yeah, Breece Hall is in my eyes, a complete running back. And when I watch him play, I mean, if you just go in the Dynasty Nerds film room and you watch Breece Hall versus TCU, it's like you're watching somebody's highlight reel. That tape is some of the best tape I've ever seen for a running back in my entire 8 years of doing this for Dynasty Nerds. I mean, it's literally like he played Madden a million times, and he knew exactly where every single defender would be on the field, and just kind of like, do all throughout the field, and had no problem scoring touchdowns on big runs. This guy does it all. I mean, contact balance is there. He's very viable in the passing game. That speed is tremendous at a 4.39, but his vision is uncanny. This guy is silky smooth back there for Iowa State. For me, I don't know where you guys would rank him. I would take Breece Hall 1-1 last year. And that says a lot because you had Najee Harris, you got Javonte Williams, and you're like, yeah, dude, these are guys who were 1-1. Najee is a top 5 back last year. But guess who outproduced Najee Harris last year? It was Breece Hall. Breece Hall had 1,572 rushing yards. Was that last year? He had 572
that was
rushing yards in
2020.
1,472, but at 1,572 led all FBS. This is a guy, when you watch him run, he's a threat to take it to the house every single time. This is a guy who has a nose for the end zone. I mean, he set an NCAA record with 24 straight games with a touchdown. 24 straight games. That's what Breece Hall did. And he's somebody that we saw his target share increase every single year there at Iowa State. When he left, Breece Hall had almost a 10% target share in 2021 for the Iowa State. This is a guy. Oh my God, I did it again.
That's 4.
Breece Hall.
That's 4.
Breece Hall is somebody who comes into the game and at any point is a threat. I mean, if you're looking for fantasy productions, he's going to do it in the passing game. He's going to do it between the tackles. He's going to do it outside the tackles. There's not a lot I saw here that I didn't like when I was trying to find negative things I didn't like about Breece Hall. I mean, you could say maybe some of that production became because that was their zone scheme there at Iowa State. Like, that's what they were designed to do, but that's fine. There's a lot of teams that design their game for certain runners, but they don't produce in a way that Breece Hall did. For me, this is easily, there's not a lot of times, the Saquon Barkley year, the Ezekiel Elliott year. This is one of the most clear-cut 1-1s I've ever seen. And even in a super flex league where we preach all the time, the quarterback is the 1-1, the quarterback is 1-1. In a class where there's no quarterback set right now as the number one quarterback, whether it be Kenny Pickett or Malik Willis, I have no problem taking Breece Hall here at 1-1, even in a super flex draft. We'll see how the NFL draft plays out, but we've seen a lot of quarterback shuffling right now. And even right now, at this point, I mean, even Jimmy Garoppolo and Baker Mayfield can't find jobs potentially. So there's not even a lot of quarterback opportunity out there. So to me, this is a clear-cut 1-1 in Breece Hall. I love him. He's one of the better prospects at running back that I've seen over the last 8 years. I'll put my stamp on that guy for approval. I love myself some Breece Hall, and he's easily my 1-1 this year.
Yeah, Rich. I mean, I think it's an easy sell for me. It was early on in the process. We were looking at guys like Isaiah Spiller and Breece Hall, kind of in the same kind of company. And real quickly, when I first took a look at these guys, Breece Hall jumped off the page at me as somebody that he was just smooth as silk. I loved his ability to make people miss in the hole, make people miss, after, he gets through the hole, make people miss in the open field. He just has a very silky smooth, and I think that was the way we first described him. And the deeper I dug in, the more I liked him. So it was one of those cases where I think my first instinct on a player was dead on, and the more I watched him, the better I liked him. So it's a pleasant surprise when that happens, because sometimes it goes the opposite way. And we'll talk about another player, I think, in the other show where it did kind of go the other way. So it's nice when that happens, and I totally agree with you in the fact that he's a very clear-cut 1-1 for me at this point in the game. I know we have a long way to go with some of these wide receivers, and they'll probably end up having a few guys kind of pop out and be, hey, these guys are very safe. Hey, this guy's got a lot of upside. But Breece Hall, you said it earlier, he probably would have gone 1-1 or 1-2 in last year's draft. So I think in a class where it is deeper but probably weaker on the top, I think it's pretty easy to say that Breece Hall is the 1-1 at this point in the game anyway.
Yeah, we're 3 for 3 on that, and I have a feeling we're about to be 4 for 4 once Jared goes as well. But it was a little bit of the opposite for me, Matt. When I first started watching, and it was mostly just the highlights and just casual stuff, I was like, he's good, but I don't think he's amazing. And in fact, in the beginning, I had Isaiah Spiller a little bit higher. It wasn't until I really actually dug in and I specifically watched the All-22. This was a time where I felt like it was such an invaluable way to watch a player because that end zone view is just huge for being able to see their vision and how he combines things together. I did it in one of my prospect breakdowns of Breece Hall, but how he pairs his vision and his patience together is a thing of beauty, because a lot of guys can have vision but might not have the patience, or vice versa. But he has both together so well that you can see him press the line, but wait for that hole to open. And then as soon as it does, shoots through. And it's not like he's this crazy like acceleration. It's not like it's Travis Etienne, but he's so decisive and he knows the right moment that he does it so beautifully. In the second level, it's like poetry in motion. I tweeted out one day, watching Breece Hall is like listening to smooth jazz. Like it is just peaceful. It just flows. And that's Breece Hall. In my nerd score, I go through all of his stuff, and we basically a 6 at something is average. So everyone is for an NFL running back anyway. So almost every one of these running backs will have a couple things that are below average, and then maybe have one or two things that are at average and slightly above. I actually have every single attribute on his sheet, with the exception of one, has a 7 or higher. And most of those are 7.5s and 8s. And then 9's at vision and patience for him. The only one that I had average at 6 was pass blocking.
That was going to be the one thing.
That was
Sorry,
the one
that was
thing.
going to be the one thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, it's not even a lack of ability. Sometimes it just seems more of a lack of understanding on what his assignment is and things like
Recognition was exactly what I wrote on there. He needs some work recognizing and picking up the blitzes at times.
Yep, and that's something that I think could easily be fixed. Better communication, better coaching staff can definitely be fixed at the next level. But at his size and his strength, it's not like, oh, I don't think he has the build or the ability to be able to do it. There's just a little bit of coaching there, but complete 3-down back, and there's not going to be many of them in the class. You could make an argument that he might be the only true 3-down back in the class. We'll talk about a couple guys later that could potentially be guys, but right now he's clear-cut 101.
Yeah, and I'm not going to beat a dead horse here. There's not too much to add. I mean, for me, he's clearly my RB1, and it's in his own tier. He's above Kenneth Walker. He's above Isaiah Spiller. It's Breece Hall. I think Rich said it best there, where in a year where the quarterbacks are kind of, we aren't sure who the top guy is. We aren't sure there's going to be one that goes in the top 10. I think even in a super flex league, Breece Hall is the 101. Like, he's the safest prospect among all the different positions for fantasy football. So I have no problem taking him there. That's what I plan to do, at least at this point. Obviously, the draft could change some things, but I don't see that happening. He's got the size. He's a 3-down workhorse. Can catch the ball extremely well out of the backfield, and he has a nice arsenal of moves. Like, he has a great dead leg. He strings together moves, spin moves, juking people out. I mean, he's a freak show. And I was surprised that he ran a 4.39 at the combine. Well, it was a 4.39, right? Yeah. 4.39 at the combine, because I think on tape he doesn't look like that fast. So the combine was huge for him. In our nerd score, so you guys all know we do our nerd scores, and we'll be publishing that live on the site soon for Nerd Herd members. So make sure you guys subscribe. This is our composite film grade. And now that we've been doing this this is our 3rd year, we're able to look back at the previous classes and see where these guys stack up. And right now, Breece Hall is right up there with Javonte Williams, Jonathan Taylor, and J.K. Dobbins, and Najee Harris. So this guy's a locked and loaded stud. RB1 potential at the next level. He's our RB5 combined in our nerd score. Yep.
And there's a rumor came out today from Matt Miller. He said there, in capital letters, a lot of smoke about Breece Hall going to the back end of round 1 this year.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Buffalo.
He has to go round 1. If he ends in Buffalo, that's a fantastic spot for him. He's so good that, and I'm sure the word is out, but the word on this class is still kind of like mediocre a little bit at best. This is an elite prospect, and now is the time to try to move up from 1-1. If you have 1-2, 1-3, I'm in a draft where I have 1-2, and I tried to move up to 1-1. I offered 1-2, 2-2, and a 23 second to move up to 1-1, and the guy's like, nah, I can't do that. And I'm like, oh my god, I don't know what else I could give you here to move up just to move up one spot. But
hey, you have 102 and I have 101, the Dynasty Nerds Invitational League, and I just want to tell you right now, you're not getting it.
Yeah, I know, that's fine. I'll take Malik Willis and be happy with it. It's okay.
That's fine.
So to me, it just, this is, when you watch players like Breece Hall, it gets exciting for what we do here. And it's so easy. Like, well, what else does he do well? It's literally everything he does well. I mean, the way that his explosiveness is just fantastic. I mean, his short area burst, fantastic. I mean, the way he moves laterally. And Garrett, that smooth jazz, the way like his patience is, he sets everything up. He sees the field so well. I mean, there's not many players when I go back and I have to watch film. Like, I'll go back and watch a game multiple times just to verify what my eyes were seeing. And then, I wasn't overly too excited about this player, right? Like, Breece Hall is that kind of player. Like, when I watched him, I had to go back and watch again to see if I wasn't like, oh, hey, am I just kicking off my rookie series and just so excited to watch rookies again? Like, that is, like, I'm overvaluing Breece Hall. And then when I got through the rest of the running backs, I'm like, no, I would take, and I love Najee. I like Travis Etienne, and I like Javonte Williams. I was like, I would have taken Breece Hall 1-1 last year. Like, he's up there to me, like I said, Saquon Barkley, Zeke Elliott, LaDainian Tomlinson, like that kind of level of a prospect. So and that's why I don't want to oh, he's good and kind of beat around the bush. Like, to me, this is somebody that you go above and beyond now to go get, because once he comes out, go try and trade for Jonathan Taylor right now and see how much it costs. So Breece Hall, a clear cut 4 for 4, 1-1, one of the best dynasty running back prospects I've honestly ever seen on tape. I mean, I think he's that good. He is that good in my eyes. So let's move on to our next prospect, who's not even close to as good as Breece Hall. But to be fair, nobody is. Like you said, like I said, I think, Jared, you said there's a tier for you. Breece Hall is all by himself. I agree. Because I have the same thing. I have 4 tiers so far in my running back prospects. It's Breece Hall by himself, Kenneth Walker by himself, Isaiah Spiller by himself, and then it starts to open up there with guys that we're going to talk about next. Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce for me is in that 4th tier. Now, you say 4th tier like it's a bad thing. It's just I like those guys in that order pretty much precisely. So this 4th tier starts to open up, and you get a guy like Dameon Pierce, running back out of Florida, 5'10", 218 pounds, coming in as a 4th-year senior. Ran a 4.59 40, pretty good for a guy of his stature. Had a 34.5-inch vertical, 119-inch broad jump. This guy came in, didn't play a ton at Florida, right? Like 329 carries, played in 48 games as a senior. You know, that's one season for Derrick Henry. So that was his career in Florida. But when I got through his tape, because going into this, I didn't know a ton about Dameon Pierce. But when I was watching his tape, I started to come away slowly more impressed. Like, he kind of just kept growing me. And what he reminded me of at the end is, like, he reminds me of Doug Martin. That's what it reminded me of. All right, so Dameon was the starter in 2020. He led the team in rushing for 106 carries, 503 yards, 4 touchdowns, 4.7 yards per carry, 17 catches, 156 yards, and a touchdown. But he wasn't the starter in 2021. He only really started 1 game out of 13 games in 21. 100 carries, 574 yards, so 13 touchdowns. He actually led the team there, averaged 5.7 yards per carry. So this is a guy that didn't get a ton of use, and the only thing I'm worried about him is he still going to be that same kind of guy at the next level? Will he be a committee guy? Is Dameon Pierce the running back that's going to be, we're going to use him with like a guy like Travis Etienne, because he's a compact runner, very stout, good running back with a good size, runs hard, has really, really good contact balance for 5'9", 218 pounds. The guy's like a bowling ball out there, right? He's really good in tight spaces. He has a really nice, good head fake there behind the line with a short area burst. He could pass protect pretty well. Some good peps in his step, as a very good athlete for his size. When you see him, you're like, oh, kind of like Doug Martin. He's like a short, stocky, stout running back, but he's a pretty good athlete. But he just wasn't used a ton. He only had 9 career games with 10 or more carries. And another thing I didn't really love about his game, like his change of direction wasn't like overly beautiful in my eyes. His long speed was just okay. Not a good long speed guy, but fast enough in my eyes. I'm thinking when I look at Dameon Pierce as a prospect, it's like, okay, I could see him if he's a bell cow somewhere being a very solid running back, because the more I watched him run and he grew on me, I thought he did everything pretty solidly for the most part, but nothing special. So I'm interested to see where he goes. I don't know if he's one of those guys that needs like an injury to become the clear-cut guy, but I think overall, for me, Dameon Pierce is a very solid running back. I'm interested to see where he falls in line when I'm all said and done. I have a couple more running backs to process here. I think I might take some PPR guys like Tyler Badie ahead of him. Some of the guys that might offer a little bit more upside in the passing game. But overall, for being a 5'9", 218-pound running back, I think Dameon Pierce offers some good dynasty upside.
So I'm going to echo a lot of what you just said, because he was a guy I didn't know a lot about, and the more I watched him, the more I liked him. And my biggest question was why he didn't kind of get used more. I don't know, if anyone has any insight on that at all, because I wasn't able to find anything.
I think it's more of a Dan Mullen thing, the head coach at Florida. I think that's just how he implemented his running backs, kind of like what we see at Georgia. They promise these guys different things out of high school. to get them to come there. So he was sharing the backfield with like Malik Davis and a couple other backs. So I think it was just one of those rotational type things.
Yeah, because he's got good power. He's got good balance. I liked his short area burst and kind of his agility going side to side, but not like change of direction side to side, more like just cutting within the holes, just kind of smaller angular cuts. I thought he was explosive doing those kind of movements. So there was I think a lot to like about him, and he caught the ball pretty well. Is also there aren't a lot of holes in his game, but it is the attempts that kind of in my mind kind of put him in this. Is he a number 2 guy? Is he a 1A to a smaller back? Exactly what you said, Rich. I had the exact same thing written down in like my conclusion at the end of kind of how I see him or questions that I still have about him. So there's a little bit more digging I'm going to have to do here on Dameon Pierce, but all around it offers good size, good power. He's got a nose for the end zone, 13 touchdowns. He can get in there. So there's not a lot of holes to his game, but there's also lingering questions why he didn't get used more in college. So I guess I'll have to dig into that a little bit between now and draft time, because I do like what I see the more and more I watch.
I'm not too worried about the committee back thing because more or less that's going to be most of these guys. And I think that's going to be most running backs in most classes. Right now in the NFL, we have maybe 7-8 guys that you would consider like true workhorse backs, where they're 3 downs. Even guys that are upside fantasy football guys like Alvin Kamara and Austin Eckler are not these true 3-down guys. They're not getting crazy workloads. They're just really good because they catch a lot of passes, and that really boosts things. But there's really only a few players. So I could see Breece Hall in this class being that. But Dameon Pierce is going to fall into a role, just like a lot of these guys will. I could see him being, a 1A, 1B type of situation, but he reminds me a little bit. He's not quite as big, but he reminds me of Michael Turner. That was the guy that I kind of saw when I saw him playing. Downhill runner. He's not going to do a lot of dancing in the hole. He's not elusive. I don't have good marks for him on game speed or elusiveness, but they're not embarrassing either. It's not like he has the tightest hips I've ever seen and he's never going to be able to, there's enough there, but he's not going to win that way. He's going to win in the short areas. He's going to win with the ground and pound type game, but love his contact balance with being a shorter player. Being low to the ground, low man wins, and you see that over and over and over. He's not just small, he's strong. So I think that's really what's appealing about him. And it'll be interesting to see how it goes. The other thing I wanted to make a mark of, 3rd highest pass protection score in the class for me, which makes it interesting because he's not necessarily someone that we think of as a pass catching 3rd down running back. But similar to what I've said in the past, it's really tough to know how these guys are going to be implemented at the next level. I think he does enough in the receiving game that I don't think he's inept there. So there might be a team that says, dang, he's so good in pass protection that we want to use him more often on 3rd downs than you would traditionally think of as a 3rd down running back. So even though I think it's more than likely he's going to be a 1st and 2nd down, goal line, short area guy, there is a little bit of upside there because of how good he is in the pass protection game.
And he was he was also used in the running game as a blocker as well, in tandem with other running backs and the quarterback as well. So he does have a lot of blocking chops. I did make note of that as well. So I think he can definitely find a role. I was thinking, with a guy like a Devin Singletary type, maybe a Michael Carter, one of these smaller guys that just needs kind of a complementary back. I think he could be a nice fit in any of those type of places.
Yeah, he would fit in there well. And I said I came away impressed with his receiving game, like you said, Garrett. I mean, 20% of his totals came from receiving. Like his yardage total was from receiving. A 6th of his touchdowns came from receiving. So he's a solid dude, old guy. It's weird you said Michael Turner because I remember Michael Turner's just, Michael the Turner the burner. So he was super fast. And like I said, it's the one thing I didn't love about Dameon Pierce was just that long speed, right? Like that him out in the open field. He's real tough to bring down. You're not going to just grab him from the upper body. You got to go low on him. His contact balance is exceptional, but he's not going to break away those big time runs for you there. So overall, I do see him kind of as a complimentary back. But if he became somebody's starting running back, say he turned into like a David Montgomery for the Bears, like that wouldn't shock me in the least bit at all. It's just, I think even if he was a starter, I think the one downside about him, what you're looking to, which is not a bad thing, because a championship caliber player is, if I look at him, if he became a starter somewhere, say he goes somewhere, somebody goes down in Chicago, say he goes there with David Montgomery, and David Montgomery goes down, his upside is like a mid-range running back too, in my eyes. Jared, what do you think of Dameon Pierce?
Yeah, so he's actually my RB4 right now in this class.
Oh, nice.
I agree with you guys. I think he's like a first and second down running back. He's not going to come off the field in goal line situations, which is nice. I mean, he clearly has a nose for the end zone. He had 16 total touchdowns this year. He had 13 on the ground. He actually finished with PFF's highest rushing grade in this class from this past year. Despite his low carries, he had 39 broken tackles. So, like we said, has tremendous leg drive, great pad level, breaks tackles, fantastic contact balance. And as you dig in deeper and really read up on this guy, he seems to be a really high character guy, loves football. Jim Nagy, the guy who puts on the Senior Bowl and organizes it every year, said he absolutely crushed his interviews with teams. The teams loved him. And you can clearly just tell that this guy just loves the game. He's a gym rat. When you saw him at the combine, he just looked chiseled and like he just lives in the weight room. So I love seeing those type of things. When you turn on his tape, he's finishing runs without his helmet. He runs angry, and I think that translates well to the NFL. And maybe the low tread on his tires serves him better as a prospect. I don't know how these NFL teams evaluate guys from that standpoint, but that could be a positive. Probably one of those guys that's a better NFL player than he was a college player, just due to the low usage in college for whatever reason that coach is now fired. So that tells you how well he did there at Florida, and how well he made his decisions there. So I like Dameon Pierce a lot. He's my RB4. I did want to say one thing. Garrett's correct. As you get past like Isaiah Spiller, all these guys are pretty much committee guys, in my opinion.
And that's what's funny about that tier, because and that's why I'm interested to see where these guys end up, because right now my tier, like you said, he's rear running back 4. Like, okay, I can live with that. You know, like Dameon Pierce, Zamir White, Tyler Badie, Pierce Strong. Like those are 4. Brian Robinson. Those are 5 running backs that I think offer some really good dynasty upside. But like for me to rank them right now, it's like they're so close in my eyes. Like, where do they go? Where do they end up? Where's their opportunity? Who gets overstrung? Because, I mean, there's a couple of guys, a guy we're going to talk about next that I think offers really good upside, who I saw this guy's name on Twitter getting floated around, and I saw it, not from you. There's somebody on there, there's somebody on Twitter, I wish I could remember his name. He goes, just a reminder that Tyler Badie runs harder at 5'8", 5'8" than this guy does here. And there's something I kept seeing those tweets. I'm like, man, this guy loves Tyler Badie. Like, whoa. I mean, he's 5'8", 197 pounds. Like, okay, let's go. I can't wait to get in his tape. But like, kind of like sarcastically, you know what I mean? And then I started watching the tape. And we're talking about Tyler Badie out of Missouri, 5'8", 197 pounds, ran a 4.45 40, 33.5-inch vertical, 121-inch broad jump. And as I watched Tyler Badie's tape, when it was all said and done, I was like, you know who this guy reminds me of? I was like, he reminds me of Ray Rice. That's who he reminds me of. And then it was funny because then I went back and it looked like I looked at Ray Rice's size, 5'8", 199 pounds. I looked at Ray Rice's, so then I was like, oh, wow, they're similar size. Let me look at Ray Rice's combine. Ray Rice ran a 4.46, 40-inch vertical, 40, a 31.5-inch vertical, 119-inch broad jump. Like their combine and their size are almost identical. Like I was like, oh, wow, look at me. Look at this guy, Ray Rice. So this is a guy in 2021, 268 carries, 1,604 yards, 14 touchdowns, averaged 6 yards per carry. His yards per carry was 3rd best in FBS. He had 54 receptions, 330 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He led his team in receptions. And for a guy that's 5'8", Tyler Badie is not afraid to run in between the tackles. He's so much better on the outside. Missouri ran a ton of that outside zone stuff there, so we saw him there. He lined up outside, ran some routes, had really good contact balance. His hands were really safe to me. He breaks tackles pretty well. He's good in short yardage situations. I mean, for the cons, you look at him, his size, which limits his tackle breaking ability. He's not going to be used in short down instances. But for me, a guy of this stature who sometimes can be easily passed up, we saw a guy like Ray Rice find a lot of success at the same exact size and combine numbers that Tyler Badie run. Watching his tape, I just got more impressed and more impressed with him, and I just kept moving him up my tier rank here. As I do my notes, I kind of rank these guys as I go, just to kind of keep them in somewhat of an order. And I put him right ahead of Dameon Pierce for me, because when I was looking at the two, when I was looking at the two for me, I was like, okay, they're the same tier, but if I had to take one right now, just blindly, I think the one that offers more dynasty upside in my eyes, which is, again, is to bring that PPR value in my eyes, I think Tyler Badie is that kind of guy. Overall, for a guy that's 5'8", 197 pounds, I usually come away not overly excited. I'm like, oh, this guy could be a compliment PPR guy. I think Tyler Badie offers a little bit more than that. I don't want to say a 3-down running back, but I think he offers, to me, the ceiling of Ray Rice, but I think his floor does offer that 3rd down, gets 2 carries on a drive here and there, could be like a 14-touch kind of guy for an NFL team. So I think Tyler Badie, for me, is a nice, interesting prospect, and depending where he lands, he could end up as my running back 4 of this class.
I mean, obviously, Tyler Badie is one of those guys he's lightning in a bottle. You know what I mean? He could break off a run at any point. That's an 80-yard touchdown. At least that's what he did in college. The problem I have with him is a lot of them were just purely speed-based. He wasn't touched at all on any of those runs. Usually if a guy got an arm on him, he was going down. So you mentioned it, he's probably, 197 pounds. He's not going to be a guy that's going to be breaking a bunch of tackles, but he is fast enough. He's got tons of acceleration, and he's gonna find the open spaces and get to them. I don't know that he's gonna operate in the NFL in between the tackles, like Rich is saying. I think he's tough for his size, but I don't think he could live in there.
And that's what I said. I mean, that's what I said. Some of the cons are like, I don't think he can live there too. I think that's the biggest con for him.
Yeah, I think he would do well in an outside zone scheme type of thing where he's not the guy, but he's getting some carries every week, and you're hoping he breaks off one of those big ones. And from a fantasy standpoint, I don't know that that's going to be consistent week in and week out. So landing spot for him is going to, I think, paint a pretty good picture as to what we can expect from him. If it's a place that has an opening for 10 carries a week, he might be a little bit more interesting. But if it's somewhere he's going to get 5 to 7, he might drop a little bit because he might be a little bit too up and down for me. I guess we'll find out come April. But that's Tyler Badie, at least. He could
be the next Tony Pollard, the guy that pushes, like when he's out there and you're like, man, this guy, he's so much better than a running back 1. What do they do when he needs to get more carries? He offers that kind of upside.
I think I like that comp more than Ray Rice, to be honest. Yeah.
Because
I think Ray Rice was more capable in between the tackles than I think Tyler Badie is.
I think he's a little more shifty too.
Yeah.
I mean, let me put it this way. This kid looks like he was shot out of a cannon and plays more physical than his size suggests. Way better vision than most of this class.
That was from the heart. That was straight from the heart.
Reading? What are you talking about? I'm just going off my film study here. What are you talking about?
A Dynasty Price tweet.
No, and I knew Garrett loved it because I tweeted out yesterday. It reminds me of Ray Rice. And Garrett's like, look, we're totally jiving on these rookie class running backs this year, and I'm glad, Matt, that you're a little bit more excited about him, and I can't wait to hear Garrett talk about him now too.
No,
because
we're
watching him, I was like, I knew I wasn't on an island here, but I'm glad I was able to swim to it.
There you go. No, I'm a big fan of Badie as well.
I got those Michael Phelps ears, you know what I mean?
When I was initially watching, I like to go through and watch like 2 games of everybody. And I'm going through my 2 games of everybody, and I'm like, worse than I thought. And I had like 7 games in a row of players where they were like worse than my expectations were. And I was like, well, let's put Badie on. Like, my expectations can't be much lower. And I put him on, and I was like, holy cow, I really like Tyler Badie. The more I watched him, the more I like. Look, here's the baffling thing to me. We're talking about a guy that, and there it is, there's my one. We're talking about a guy that is, he's in the SEC, and he's stuck behind freaking Larry Roundtree. And they don't use him until it's like, oh, it's 3rd down and 11. Let's run a draw to Tyler Badie. And a lot of times he would pick it up. Like, he would make good plays in the open field. And it was just like afterthought so often, and just 3rd down stuff. And like, we'll work him in when we can. And we're just going to feature freaking Larry Roundtree. And then
he got drafted.
He did get drafted, but he's Larry Roundtree. Like, there's
somehow he got drafted.
Somehow. What was it, like 6th round or something? I don't know.
It was pretty late, yeah.
But regardless of that, traditionally what happens is there's a freshman that comes in, or there's a guy with a more traditional build, and you would think Badie would keep his same role. But instead they said, all right, you've looked good in short spurts. We'll just give you the whole thing. And he runs for 1,600 yards in the SEC. In the SEC, this isn't in the MAC, this isn't in the Wacth, this isn't in the Sun Belt. This is in the SEC. He runs for 1,600 yards, not behind Bama's offensive line, not behind Georgia's offensive line, behind Missouri's offensive line. Like that, like all of that should not come together and work that way, but it did. He overcame the odds on a lot of this. And Rich, I'm with you on the Ray Rice comp. Like I do think he's a little, like, there's small differences in their game, but overall, this is somebody that, for his size, is going to do much better between the tackles than people give him credit for. And his ceiling, I think, is one of the highest ceilings out of all of the running backs not named Breece Hall. Like, his ceiling is extremely high. Now, his floor is very low as well. You don't want to bet on 5'7" running backs or 5'8" running backs, whatever he ended up coming in at, like 5'8". Like, that's not traditionally like the prototype. So his floor is extremely low as well. But we're seeing the NFL start to move away a little bit from this typecasting of, this is the traditional size of this player, this is the traditional size of this player, this is the traditional size of this player. And they're starting to move into and just letting guys that have the talent and the ability to play the positions. So it's one of the most boom bust players in the draft, but I'm leaning more towards boom. He keeps flipping between my RB 5 and 6 in this class. So I have him pretty high up there. And as far as the difference, like, I don't even have him that far away from Spiller and Walker. Like, which, by the way, I was doing some small tweaks today. I literally have both Kenneth Walker and Isaiah Spiller at a 72. They're tied with the exact same number. That is hard to do. But I love Tyler Badie. He's not far from those guys. Crazy upside. Go, Jared.
No, Matt has something to say.
All right, go, Matt.
I got to say before.
I just want, before you get too far down the line with the 1,600 yards against the SEC competition, if you look at his game, like his per game stuff, 203 yards game against Central Michigan, 209 against North Texas,
sure,
254 against Vanderbilt. So I mean, it's not like, I mean,
okay, but also the last 3 games of the season,
kind of layups here.
Okay, but Vanderbilt is in the SEC.
Yeah, I was gonna get there.
South Carolina 209, Florida 146, Arkansas 219.
I was gonna get there.
Took you too long,
but you didn't. You cut me off. So,
well, I can't wait till we get to 2 shows from now, because I can't wait to get to Kenneth Walker, because I have no idea. Like, that is one player, Garrett.
That's going to be our difference this year.
We're going to drastically disagree on, because I think Kenneth Walker is fantastic.
I think he's
fantastic. Fine. I think he's fantastic.
All right.
Yeah, so I think
Tyler Badie. Tyler Badie.
You guys
Jared
hit on everything pretty much with Tyler Badie. Right now, he's my RB8, and it's simply because he's a role player. You know, he's the pass catcher out of the backfield, which those guys are extremely valuable. I think he's like a J.D. McKissick or a Nyheim Hines, and we love having those kind of guys on your fantasy team. So I think he's an extremely good value pick in rookie drafts, where you'll probably be able to get him like early 3rd round, I would think. We'll see where he lands in the draft. But, one stat that really stood out to me with Tyler Badie is he amassed for over 600 total touches at Missouri. And within those 600 touches, he never put the ball on the ground once. So that was pretty cool. Obviously has very good ball security. He was 3rd in the NCAA in rush yards, 1st in rushing touchdowns in the SEC, 2nd in touchdowns from scrimmage in the entire NCAA. So extremely productive. I like Tyler Badie a lot.
Yeah, I think I want to see what kind of opportunity he falls into. You know what I mean? Like, I want to see where he ends up landing. And that will go, he go from, like I said, he go anywhere from running back 4 to running back, like where you have him, Jared, running back 8 to me, depending where he ends up and what kind of opportunity he's going to find himself into. You know, if he goes to Seattle and he's going to be him and Rashad Penny, then like, okay, let's give this guy a huge bump here. If he goes somewhere where it's like he's the number 3 in Dallas, but it's him, Tony Pollard, and Zeke, and they're worried about Zeke, then it's like, let's move him down to number 8 here. But overall, talent-wise, I think I'm with Garrett on this. I think he does offer some solid upside.
Yeah, and that's how this running back class is. I mean, from 4 to maybe even 10, like we're going to have a ton of change up depending on draft capital and landing spot because they're all so close. Personally, for me, and I know for Garrett as well, like in our film grade on how these guys stack up.
Yeah, it's definitely odd compared to most years. They're all, for me, like I said, it goes up to 2 all the way down to like 9. So it's wild. But if you want to get a guy that's a good buy low like Tyler Badie, maybe go over to predictionstrike.com as soon as he's drafted and just throw a few dollars in on Tyler Badie and just watch the money grow because he's not the biggest name and he's not the biggest guy, but it could end up paying off at predictionstrike.com. That's where you can go buy, sell shares of players just like they are the stock market. Look, you can do the stock market, you can do NFTs, you can do crypto, you can do all that. But if you're here, chances are the thing you know best is fantasy football. And you know these prospects because you're listening to the show, you're listening to us break them down this year. If you were listening last year, you were hearing us gush about Javonte Williams, and you probably made a bunch of money off of Javonte Williams this past season. So go over there, go to Prediction Strike. You can go to their app, which is beautiful, or you can go to the website and sign up with the promo code DYNASTY to receive a free share of a player with your first deposit of $20 or more. That's promo code DYNASTY to get yourself that free share over at PredictionStrike.com.
All right, so we just broke down 3 running backs that we all for like at some level, right? Like these are all, we talked about 3 running backs that we would draft on our dynasty rosters. Breece Hall being elite, Dameon Pierce and Tyler Badie seeing like solid prospects. Let's see where they land and how high they can get. Now, let's move on to our next running back prospect in Tyler Goodson. We had Tyler Badie and now we have Tyler Goodson, running back out of Iowa, 5'9", 197 pounds. Ran a 4.42 40 at the combine. Pretty good speed,
wow,
right?
That sounds very similar to Tyler Badie.
Yeah, 36.5-inch vertical, 123-inch broad jump. Here's my pros on Tyler Goodson. I said pros as in plural. Here's my pro on Tyler Goodson. He can catch the ball, okay?
Yep. They lined him up out wide. And
besides that, Tyler Goodson out of running back, I mean, what does this guy think he's doing? Trying out for some play on Broadway, dancing behind the line all day long? I've never seen a guy move his feet so much behind the line in my entire life. I watched one game of this guy, and I was like, I don't know, maybe he like had too much coffee, and he's just too jittery back there. Like, I don't know what's going on. If he's trying to try out for like some dance competition, I don't know what's going on. Let me put on a second game of him. I mean, he's a Big Ten runner. Come on, his name is Goodson. Let's get with it. Let's see some good out of you, son. And I tried a second game, and it's the same thing. And I was like, this guy, I was in bed watching his film. And out loud I go, this guy is absolutely terrible. And my wife rolls over. She's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, this running back out of Iowa, Tyler Goodson. She's like, oh, God, and rolled back over. She's like, I had enough when you said football player. I was like, no, you don't understand. She's like, no, I understand very clearly. I was like, okay, on to the next one. I mean, dude, I want to hear what your guys' takes on it, but for me, Tyler Goodson is awful.
Yeah, no,
that's my take. He is awful. I mean, he's hesitant. He dances too much. His vision's terrible. He doesn't create anything on his own. His burst is non-existent. He can't push a pile.
All right.
Thanks for coming, buddy.
I have a very similar notes. He doesn't play to his time speed whatsoever. And I don't know that I can't put my finger on whether he just has no vision or he can see it, he just can't get there. But he's not beating anyone to the boundary. And for a 4.42 guy, 4.42 guy, that I don't understand how the hell that happens. So
I would have guaranteed he ran like a 4.59, but nope.
Me too. And at 197 pounds, he has no power element to his game. They lined him up out wide. You said it, like he lined up as a wide receiver occasionally, and he looked okay catching passes. Is he like a Demetric Felton from last year, who also did not excite me, but did okay in the NFL, but was never a fantasy factor? So like even if he falls into one of those little roles, like who cares for fantasy purposes, really? You know what I mean? Like this guy is. I've already wasted too much time.
He's off my board.
Yeah, me too.
It's hard to get like off my board. He's off my board.
Yeah, I've graded 19 running backs so far officially, and he comes in 19th. So he is dead
too.
last for me.
And wait. His pass pro stinks too. He gets pushed backwards right into the quarterback every time. I did want to mention that. I made a note of it.
And I mean, there are people that like him, but I'm not one of them.
Who, his mom and uncle?
No, there are people on Twitter. I actually had to argue with a couple people about him. And
what did they say? What did they say that was good?
Some campus to Canton leagues, and I've been posting like, anybody want Tyler Goodson? Because I have him on my teams, and he actually wasn't bad for campus to Canton leagues because
he produced in college.
Want that production on the college side, but yeah, on tape. I mean, when he did produce, it was more of a product of like the Iowa offensive line or that offense, in my opinion. And you know, all due respect to Tyler Goodson, he's trying to make it in the NFL. Good for him, but we're talking fake football here, where we need guys that aren't not only we need the guys that are top of the line, you know, right, that are going to produce for fantasy. We don't need guys that are 7th round picks. I think this guy's probably an undrafted free agent, and he's off my board as well.
Yeah. Sorry, nothing personal, Tyler Goodson, but like from a dynasty player profile, I mean, it's like me and you in the bathroom, and I just ate a whole bunch of Taco Bell at 2 a.m. It's not looking good, buddy. Not looking good. A little runny.
I had put out a tweet about 2 months ago, and I was like, it's really weird when you look at the statistics before someone's game, and you're like, oh, this was a good game. I'm excited to watch this one, because I like to try to watch one of their better ones first. And so I like watched one. It was like 122 rushing yards, and something like that. And like then I watched it, and I was like, he got 122 rushing. I had to go back 3 times to make sure it was the right game. And I was like, wait, was that from 2020 and not 2020? Like, and then I went back and watched every single play again. And I was like, oh, I guess that was 20 yards, but it was like a broken play there. And like, so I guess he technically ended up getting there, but it wasn't good. So I feel bad being that negative. I'm sure he's a great kid, but he's not helping you for Dynasty.
I feel bad because I came in here literally completely. I thought I was like, I'm gonna go here and like rail on Tyler Good. I'm just gonna do it. Like I'm gonna come in here, I'm gonna rail on him, and then I felt even worse now because we all 4 of us railed on him. We all had the same.
No one came to his defense.
Like nobody came to. I thought like maybe I'm missing something because honestly I only watched 2 games because after that I could not handle anymore. Like he was that bad.
I hear you.
Like. I started I went to click on the 3rd game and started watching, and literally like 10 seconds in, he was doing the same thing again, and I was like, no. This is a. I was like, I've seen enough. I've seen this kind of dance before, and it does not relate to Dynasty fantasy football. Off the board.
Yep.
Which is hard to do to get off my board this early in the process, but he did it. So let's move on to our next Dynasty running back prospect, and that's Leddie Brown out of West Virginia. 6 foot, 213 pounds, ran a 4.6, 440, 30-inch vertical, 118-inch broad jump. None of those things right there from his combine results are going to scream athletic to you or overly athletic. And when you watch the tape, you see a little bit of that as well. He has really good size, but he was like one of those volume runners, right? Like this is a guy who got tons of volume at West Virginia, so he did produce. I mean, this is a guy who averaged 107 scrimmage yards in 2021, and he can catch the football as well. But at the same time, I saw him put the ball on the ground a little too much with his fumbles. His patience didn't really exist at all. Instead of like creating on his own, he kind of reminded me of like Isaiah Correll, where he'd rather just run into somebody and hope for the best. So he'd run into his defenders a little bit, not really trying to like juke them out of their shoes. His vision that told me his vision wasn't very good. His creativeness wasn't very good. So watching him, like you said, Garrett, like the numbers were there on a per game basis. You're like, oh, this guy produces. But then when you watch it, you're just like, oh, he produces in college because they just gave him the ball a lot. This guy to me is like a practice guy, squad running back. Never really going to produce at the NFL level. There's guys on the streets right now that you could probably sign and bring in that could probably do better than what Leddie Brown could do. Good size, 6 foot, 213 pounds. But to me, he doesn't offer all those intangibles that you want out of a running back. He offers none of them in my eyes. He doesn't do anything great at all. Not off my board, bad. He's not a Goodson, but 6th round pick if he gets drafted in the 6th round of the NFL draft, 7th round of the NFL draft, maybe.
Leddie Brown, he's a tough physical runner. He definitely lacks the top gear, I think, to kind of separate in the NFL. So he's a grinder type of guy. He's going to be probably a special teamer, I would say, if he makes an NFL team. I think of him when I look at him. I think maybe like, is he like a Benny Snell type of guy from a few years ago? Just tough, physical, but kind of lacks the top end athleticism to be like an NFL running back, down in and down out. That's kind of what I see when I see Leddie Brown. Unfortunately, because I like some of his attributes. I like how tough he runs. I think he's very physical.
But did you see did you see his fumbling and all? Did you see how many games he put the ball on the ground a little bit too much?
I think
for a big guy, you don't want to see that because that's what
you definitely don't.
Do.
But when guys are fighting and scrapping for yards like he does, and you're gonna have that sometimes. So it's not. I'm not saying like that. Like that's a good thing or anything, clearly. But I think you do see it
clearly.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen the GIF from one of the X-Men movies? And I should know exactly. I can't think of the villain's name, but it's the dude with the big thing on his head, and he just runs through a wall and like runs through several walls in a row. It's like at a bank or something. I don't remember what it is, but people turned it into a GIF, and it's just him running through wall after wall after wall after wall. And that's kind of what Leddie Brown reminds me of. Like, I actually have he has the highest power physicality score in the class for me. Because there were times where he would just carry guys. Now, he didn't like have any peripheral vision. He didn't have anything else going on, but he's like, look, this is A, where I'm at right now, and that's B. And if you're going to get in my way, I'm going to hurt you. And that was his entire game, which is great in high school. Sometimes works in college, works for him. But with the type of athletes that are going to be at the next level, you got to have some sort of burst. You got to have some sort of wiggle. And he just doesn't have either one of those. I wanted to like him more because I love players that are that physical, like that appeals to me. But they're just, when there's nothing else with it, I couldn't do it. So he got a pretty low score for me. Once again, not Goodson bad, but it was pretty low.
I said, if you don't offer other attributes to your game and you're one-dimensional and you're just like in college, it doesn't translate to Dynasty whatsoever.
You're a dime a dozen.
Especially when that's your one dimension.
Yeah, you're a dime a dozen. You can find guys in free agency that do that. You can find six or 10 other running backs that do that in the same draft class every single year. And that's how I have Leddie Brown as well. There's not too much to add. Rich, I did look up. He had 5 fumbles this year. He had 8 total in his career. So he does have a little bit of a fumbling issue. He finished 29th out of 31 in the vertical jump. He was 26th out of 27 in the 40-yard dash this year, 23rd out of 30, so not much there. Athletically, in the nerd score combined, just some names who he's around. Jake Funk, Deion Jackson, Larry Roundtree, Rico Dowdle. So let's move on.
Yep.
Yeah, so, it tells you everything you know. He's literally the guy, if you do run a 6th-round rookie draft, that you would take just to cut in 2 years when he's eligible to come off your taxi squad. He's just a name on there that you hope he's got a player that you draft playing your taxi squad, and just somehow, some way in 2023, week 11, he gets a start because somebody's hurt, and then the other backup's hurt as well, and he comes in, he rushes for 110 yards, you could trade him for a 4th-round pick. Like that's his best case scenario. That's his best case scenario. So yeah, let's move on to Jashaun Corbin, running back out of Florida State, 5'11", 202 pounds. What is his combine? You'll never know because he didn't run. He didn't run at the combine.
0.0.
Yeah, this is a guy. He played 2 years at Texas A&M. Then he got hurt. He hurt his hammy in his second game in 2019 and kept him out for the year. Went to Florida State. Watching Corbin's tape, I mean, this is a guy. He had some pretty good vision. Ran a good amount of routes there as well. Return kicks for Florida State at times. He was okay in the open field. He showed some good, solid movement there. But I mean, at the same time, he's like one of those one-speed guys. He doesn't change direction all that well. Not very elusive in the open field. Doesn't have really good bursts behind the line. To me, when I watched him, I just came away very like definition of Jag, right? Jashaun Corbin, Florida State, just another Jag at running back. Does a couple things well. Like I understand how he got to Florida State to be their running back, but the next level, I don't see a lot of things that translate to, again, a dynasty asset. Like if I'm saying one of his best attributes here would be is his route running and his vision is what I came away most impressed with. But I don't think he has athleticism to be a factor at the next level.
Yeah, so he's not like he's probably going to be a role player, pass catching type role at the next level. At least that's how, based on his attributes and what he's good at, that's what he would need to be in order to find success. And he's not as good at that as James Cook or Tyler Badie. He spent 2 years at Texas A&M, then he transferred to Florida State. Like you said, Rich, I have him graded pretty low. He's lower than like Keontae Ingram, Abram Smith, Jerome Ford. He's right there like with Leddie Brown. So that should tell you how I feel.
Yeah,
about
like
him.
you said, I mean, if that's your best attribute, it's coming to be the PPR guy, and then there's tons of guys in this class alone that could surpass you because that's where the NFL wants to fill out those roles, right? Guys on rookie contracts that come in and are 5th, 6th round picks, sometimes 7th round picks because they pay them nothing and they come in and be solid, contributors. Like you said, Ford out of Cincinnati alone would be sky high higher than a guy like Corbin here. So to me, I'm with you, Jared. Very low. Again, 6th round rookie pick, low.
And I think we're sharing a similar view because I did write in like the only way he could ever become fantasy relevant is if he found himself in like an Austin Eckler type role where he was getting fed tons of passes. I just don't think he's a in between the tackles type of guy. So it's super long shot that he would ever get there, and I don't think he really has the physical attributes to be that. But that would be the only way possible for him to actually be fantasy relevant.
I'm a little bit higher than the rest of us, which is good because we have agreed entirely too much on this first
I was literally going to
show.
say, because I thought you were about to chime in. I was like, wow, we all agree exactly on these players almost to a T, which is crazy because there's 4 of us. But finally, some disagreeing here. Tell us why we're wrong.
Usually I'm the contrarian, and maybe it was just instinctual that I had to put him on here so I could be a little bit of the contrarian. Now, don't get me wrong. He's not in my top 10, but he is just barely outside of it. I saw good vision, not great vision. And I think that's the thing. I see a lot of like 6s and 7s in here for me, which tells me that he could be like an average to slightly above average player, which tells me he's going to be a good backup probably at the NFL level. There were flashes that I saw. This wasn't as consistent as I would like it to be, but there would be moments where you would see him make a guy miss in the open field. There would be moments where he would lower a shoulder and run guys over. He didn't always string them together as consistently as I wanted to see. And I think that's what I would have liked to have seen a little bit more. But I also appreciated that there was nothing in his game outside of his pass protection that made me want to throw up. And usually these lower tier guys, there's 2 or 3 things on their profile where you're like, oh, that is hideous. He didn't have any of those things on there that was just really, really bad. So I think if given the right situation, I think he can do enough. There is enough burst. There's enough strength. There's enough size. He's not amazing at any of those things, but I could see him being a solid backup for an NFL team, which could carry some value.
Oh, look, you said exactly what I said. I was like, I understand I got a Florida State, but he's the definition of a Jag. Like he doesn't do anything I hate.
Good backups are valuable.
Yeah, doesn't do anything I hate.
Garrett and I differ. Garrett, this is one guy you and I differ about 5 points on in our nerd score, which is pretty odd. Like, we aren't usually that far off. So
Yeah, we're usually within 2 points of each other on almost every prospect. So
is he like a Miles? Is he like a Miles Gaskins to you? Like, could he be that?
Yeah. I think he's maybe a hair bigger than Gaskin, but yeah, I could see him being in that kind of role where he's enough of a slasher where he could rip off some runs here and there. We saw him rip off some nice runs actually in the Shrine Bowl, watching him play there. He didn't have like an incredible week of practice. He was kind of ho-hum. Nobody said anything bad, nobody said anything good. But when you watched the game, him along with two other guys that we'll touch on at some point, Pierre Strong and Ty Chandler, all three of those guys really flashed in the Shrine Bowl game. And it was enough to perk me up a little bit. And yeah, so I like him, but once again, he's going to be like my running back 11, 12. And he could still drop a spot or two because I still haven't officially graded Ford and I still haven't officially graded Brian Robinson. So those are two guys that could definitely still come in ahead of him.
Yeah, Brian Robinson's one of my last guys I get into, which I'm excited to check out here. And you mentioned Pierre Strong, and we're talking about him in the next episode, the Nerd Herd episode. And this next episode is going to be a good one. When I saw our list come in, how we're doing the shows, I was like, wow, this Nerd Herd episode is pretty packed in with guys that I think I like here.
Tell them who we're covering.
We're covering Isaiah Spiller from Texas A&M. We're covering James Cook. We're going to cover Zamir White. We're going to cover Keontae Ingram. We're going to cover Kennedy Brooks, and we're going to cover Pierre Strong Jr. So this is a very strong episode coming up with the Nerd Herd. To check it out, just get on dynastynerds.com, join the Nerd Herd, hear what we got to say about these players and all the rest. I'm excited about these guys because I think this might be the strongest episode we have coming up, because when I came away, like, there's nobody I really hated in this next episode at all. And there's a couple guys I actually like them, and I'm going to tell you why. So check it out, Nerd Herd. We're going to be back here next week, breaking down with episode 3 of the running backs. We're going to kick that off with my guy, Kenneth Walker, and I got a lot of good things to say about him coming up. So check that out. Don't forget to get on the Prize Picks. Use that promo code NERDS. If you do, and you make a futures bet, we're going to send you the most comfortable t-shirt in the world. That's a Dynasty Nerd shirt. Check us out. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on... where else? Facebook, all kinds of TikTok. We're on TikTok, right?
Yeah. We're on TikTok, Instagram.
I'm not. I'll download that one day, maybe.
Dynasty Nerds on Twitter.
MySpace.
Yeah. I'm friends with Tom. I don't know about you. So we're back next week, Nerd Herd, talking about rookie running backs.
We should make a janky old MySpace page. Adios.